What we're going to do is we're going to look at some more logarithmic equations, starting with letter D. Remember, the first thing that we do is we turn it into exponential form. So since our base is 5, what we're going to do is we're going to put 5. Y is our exponent, and that's equal to x. Remember, we have a vertical asymptote at x is equal to 0. We're going to make our chart. Remember, y is our independent variable. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick -1, 0, and 1. When we plug in a -1, it flips and it becomes 1/5. When we plug a 0 in, anything to the 0 is 1. When we plug in a 1, we get 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my coordinate system. I'm moving it over slightly to the left so I could get 5 in there. I have my vertical asymptote at 0. Then I plot my points, 1/5 the -1. I have 1, 0, and I have 5, 1. Now, if we're looking at letter E, we're going to do the same thing. Remember, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to move the 4 over. So we have y minus 4 is equal to log base 3 of x. Once again, we're going to write it in exponential form. Remember, our base number is our base. So what we have is 3 to the y minus 4, and that's equal to x. We have our vertical asymptote at 0, and we're making our table again. Remember, our table is going to be a little bit different because notice what we're trying to do is we're trying to get our exponent to be 0. So what we have is we have 4 in the middle. I'm going to pick a point to the left and to the right. So what I have is 3, and I have 5. When I plug in the 3, 3 minus 4 is -1, so it flips and it becomes 1/3. When I plug in a 4, 4 minus 4 is 0. Anything to the 0 is 1. When I plug in a 5, 5 minus 4 is 1, so it stays the same. What I'm going to do is just make my x-axis shift so I'm able to get 5 in there. So I have a vertical asymptote at 0 again. I have 1/3 and 3. I have 1 and 4. And I have 3 and 5. Now let's look at our last one, letter F. Remember, because it's in parentheses, we're going to start off raising it to the base 4. And when the bases are the same, they become 1. So what we have is x minus 1 is equal to 4 to the f of x, or y. And then when we get the x by itself, what we get is x is equal to 4 to the f of x plus 1. Remember that our vertical asymptote is going to be at 1. And when we have our chart, we're going to start off with our y values. We have our -1, 0, and 1, just like we normally do. When we plug in a -1, it flips to 1/4. Plus 1 is 1 1/4. Anything to the 0 power is 1, plus 1 is 2. And when we plug in a 1, that's 4 plus 1, which is 5. Once again, I'm going to move my axis over a little bit. This time I have my vertical asymptote at 1. And when I plot it, I have 1 and a fourth and negative 1. I have 2 and 0. And I have 5 and 1.